Good day, YouTubers, and welcome to another episode of the AV Club. I'll be your host for this week, Cornell Westside, and today we'll be going over episode 9, the season finale of TheLastofus. Now, the title of this episode called Look for the Light, which is a reference to the Fireflies motto, When in Darkness, Look for the Light. If you remember, the first episode was titled When in the Darkness, and now this one is the completion of Look for the Light. Now, I usually talk about my opinion throughout the review of the episode, but I'm going to save it to the end because I do have mixed feelings about this episode and the way that the series, the season ended. So we open up the episode with them giving a flashback to Ellie's mom, and if you recognize her voice, that's because Ellie's mom in this episode, Anna, is being played by the voice actor, who plays her in the game. Her name is Ashley Johnson, who's actually kind of eerie, like hearing her make all the noises, because obviously she was using her real voice for Ellie because she sounded verbatim how she did in the game. Like if you go back and watch the episode with your eyes closed and then listen to the game version of her talk at the same time, you probably can't tell the difference.
I'm scared of ending up alone.
Find someone to bring her up and make sure that she's safe.
Anywho, it looks like she's getting chased by a runner. It looks like at this point someone who has just been turned by the infection. She escapes to some local house nearby. Unfortunately, the runner gets inside and she fights him off and kills him. Unfortunately, she gets bitten in the process though. Since her water broke right before this fight, she technically was in labor during the entire infected fight, and as a result of the infected fight, winds up pushing out Ellie. However, after having birth, she noticed that the umbilical cord is still attached and that she's infected, and so she immediately cuts the umbilical cord in order to make sure that the infection doesn't pass along into Ellie. Now, the knife she uses to kill the infected and the same knife that she used to cut the umbilical cord actually is kind of unsanitary now that I think about it, but that knife is actually the same pocket knife that Ellie is seen to be using throughout the series as well. But I'm going to pose that question to you all in the chat. Do you think that this would actually work, since she just stabbed a infected person in the head and all the mycelium are now on this knife, and then she cut an umbilical cord? So technically, with that fluid, would that stop the infection? Okay, I'm thinking on this too hard. I'll just believe in the TV magic we're seeing here.
Damn it, Tommy! We don't need an umbilical cord. This is TV.
Anna has a moment with her newborn baby Ellie, which she names on the spot. And then we cut to a scene where we see Marlene and some Fireflies coming to the house where Anna is. Marlene finds her in the room and sees that she's been bit, and Anna immediately tells her that she had Ellie before she was bit and cut the umbilical cord, which we all know is false. Anna gives her dying wish, and that is she finds someone to take care of Ellie, and that she gives her pocket knife. Initially, Marlene denies the request, but then she accepts and goes ahead and takes Ellie and unalives Anna. After that, it looks like we have a time jump, which is probably spring, since the last season was winter, which, as you know, if you've watched all of my videos, is a common theme in the video game, as it shows the time jumps in 4 seasons. And Joel is now a brand new man. Yeah, he is healed from those wounds of last season, it looks like. And we get a scene of him being probably the best father we have seen him been since even the scene we had with Sarah being alive. He finds some Chef Boyardee, which he knows that Ellie loves, which is a flashback to, I think, episode either 2 or 3, when they ate out at the first open fire meal that they had. He offers to play a game of Boggle, and he also, in a complete change, gives her a rifle as he's changing out something out of his bag, which is something that we have never seen him done before. Last time Ellie asked for a rifle, he blatantly told her no. And then we get my first favorite Easter egg of the episode, Joel talking about the guitar. Now, if you play the game, you know that Joel playing that guitar and singing that song. I do not know the name of the song. I've seen it found in a bunch of other YouTube videos, but cannot remember it right now, but it's so beautiful.
Sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me.
That didn't suck.
What's important to point out is, though Joel is the most enthusiastic he's ever been during the series toward Ellie, Ellie seems to be very cold towards him for some reason. Like, there's a point when, actually something that's straight out of the game, we have a point where Joel asks to give her a boost so she can get a ladder that's above them so that they can climb up. And once she gets up there, she sees something that Joel doesn't know what's going on. And again, this is straight out of the game. But then she just drops the ladder on top of him pretty much, and he's like forced to fend for himself to like get up there and figure out what's going on. He runs up after her only to to see that she has seen a giraffe just randomly walking around, and it's got her all excited. Another scene that's straight out of the game. Also, for this episode, they did use a real giraffe to film this. A lot of people thought this was a CGI giraffe, but I've seen a few articles that pointed to how they used a real giraffe for this. With all the animals that are running around, I think it's safe to say that animals do not contract this version of the cordyceps virus, or any version that will turn them into the infected, similar to what we're seeing in the humans.
What is it? Ellie!
Hey there.
So, is everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
So, is it everything you hoped for?
It's got its ups and downs. You can't deny that view.
In the next scene, we get another heart-to-heart between Joel and Ellie, but it starts off with a callback to an earlier episode where they are looking off into the distance and enjoying the view.
Is it everything you hoped for?
Jury's still out. But man, you can't deny that view.
So, is it everything you hoped for?
It's got its ups and downs. You can't deny that view.
Joel, now in full father mode, tells Ellie that they don't have to go through with this, that they can just go back to Tommy's settlement, live out their lives, and forget all about the Fireflies mission. And Ellie actually says that everything has to be for something. All the people that died have to mean something, and that they have to complete this mission. And Joel accepts, and they keep going toward the hospital.
We don't have to do this. You know that, right?
What do you mean? What else are we supposed to do?
Nothing. We just go
Back to Tommy's. Be done with this whole damn thing.
After all we've been through.
Everything that I've done.
You can't be for nothing. And when we're done, we'll go wherever you want. I'll follow you anywhere you go.
In the next scene, Joel and Ellie are walking through what is the remains of the early days of the Fedra stations, in which they call medical camps. And just like in any apocalypse movie, usually they have the medical camps before they send people to quarantine zones, because they want to figure out who is actually infected and who is not infected. Obviously, if you're infected at one of these zones, you probably were killed before you were sent off anywhere else. And I don't know if you remember, but in a couple episodes, they actually showed one of the mass graves where they actually took people who they found were infected and unalived them in mass graves. He explains to Ellie that he wound up at the station because of the quote-unquote guard that took the shot and missed him. Although now we finally get an updated story and found out that Joel actually took the shot himself and tried to unalive himself, and that's why he wound up at the camp. He explains that, as we all understand, that without his daughter, he really didn't have anything to live for, and that he just didn't want to continue on. But fortunately, his attempt did not work, and he's still here with The Last of Us. And I swear, Joel gives one of the most heartbreakingly loving lines of the entire series. I had to rewind it a few times.
So time heals all wounds, I guess.
It wasn't time that did it.
Right after that, we get a much needed comedy break when Ellie and Joel start reading from the Book of Puns again from Will Livingston. But unfortunately, when two people are too happy in a series, that's when something bad is about to happen. And unfortunately, as they are walking, they are attacked by the Fireflies. When it comes to, Marlene is there at the hospital and tells him that they mistook him for a raider and attacked him and took Ellie in the process. Now, this is one of my problems that I had with the episode and kind of the series as a whole, as right now, this is the point where Marlene Marlene is now turning into the villain of the episode. And I feel like we never got enough time with her being the hero in order to really feel the turn of her turning into a quote unquote villain. And I say villain loosely because she's more like an obstacle to Joel, whose now mission is to keep his surrogate daughter alive no matter what. And also, I don't really think she's a villain because at the end of the day, she explains to Joel that she's trying to save the world by using Ellie to create a vaccine. Unfortunately, the cordyceps virus that they need to create the vaccine is in her brain, and they would have to remove it in order to create this vaccine. She has like a slight moment where she refers to Ellie's mom and kind of tries to tug on our heartstrings a little bit to say like this is kind of a hard decision for her, but there's no real emotion there that kind of gives me that feeling from her. It's only words. I personally believe that we needed more backstory here, so a little bit more after what happened when she took Ellie from Annie, or a little bit more backstory of her and Annie, so there's a little bit more connection, like showing how she put Ellie into Phaedra school and just giving us a little bit more of the connection between the two. I think could have helped show that she had a lot of remorse here. And there I go, cat's out the bag. I said I wasn't going to say anything about doing a review during the review, but hey, I started doing it, so let's just keep going. The next scene really pissed me off.
Language, gosh sake, watch your language.
So Marlene lets Joel live because he delivered Ellie, and she feels like she's in debt to him instead of killing him in order to make sure that he doesn't come back after her. But obviously he gets away from the guards and goes on a killing spree with the Fireflies, just like in the game. Now personally, I've been waiting to see this scene in live action for a very long time, and I've been waiting for this particular scene and this live action mode because I wanted to see exactly how they did it, to see if they were going to change anything, do exactly to the storyline, or just to see what they were going to do. And what did they do? They sped through the entire scene. I mean, I thought it was a complete letdown. It actually reminded me of the scene from the movie Takers with Chris Brown and Michael Ealy when they both knew that they were about to die, so then they just played that sad dramatic music as they just walked outside and just were murdered by the police. Yeah, and I hated that movie too, so yeah. I did brace myself for a moment like this a little bit based upon what happened in last week's episode, only because I knew that there was so much stuff that they had to get through in a 60-minute time period, because they said that they weren't extending the episode any longer like they did episode 3. And they also were adding the new backstory with Annie into this episode, so I knew that there was no time to fit any of the story in this episode. I think I even said last week, like, if they didn't have the Annie storyline as a cold open, then I didn't want to see it like at there, because I knew that there was so much more that they had to get through. That obviously I'm saying that I feel like they didn't sufficiently still give enough time towards. But hey, what can I say? I'm not a studio exec, so I don't get paid to make these decisions. But moving on, we get another scene straight out of the video game when Joel comes face to face with the 3 doctors. He kills the one doctor who comes at him with a knife, and this is a decision that's gonna come back to bite him in the ass. Now, for those of you who don't know, this will be the father of a season 2 antagonist that we know as Abby, who's a very controversial character in this game. Her character is so controversial that the voice actor who actually played her got death threats for what happened, or rather what her character did in the next game. So yes, it's official, we will see Abby in season 2, and all I'll say is she'll be out for revenge. In the next scene, Joel carries out Ellie in that savior pose as I was talking about. That was similar to the same way that David picked her up and took her when she was passed out when they were hunting her. After that, we get a very intense scene with him and Marlene. That is pretty much straight out of the video game.
Can't keep her safe forever. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? Or murdered by raiders? Because she lives in a broken world that you could have saved.
Maybe. It ain't for you to decide.
So what would she decide, huh? Because I think she'd want to do what's right. She won't feel anything. We can still find a way.
It's all right. You're with me. Take it slow.
Drugs are still wearing off.
What drugs?
You were running some tests on you?
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually.
The doctors, they couldn't make any of it work. They've
stopped looking for a cure.
I'm taking us home.
Wait! Please.
You've just come after her.
So yeah, go ahead and drop an F in the chat for Marlene, but I did think the actress did a good job of portraying her this season. And while I think they should have explored more of her character in the show just to give her more of a backstory so that we can kind of feel the change of her from being a good person to a bad person, I did think that this scene was still capturing the same emotion from when we were playing the game. So after Ellie wakes up and she asks about what happened back at the Fireflies hospital, Joel actually lies to her and tells her that she was one of many that were part of the trials to get the cordyceps vaccine created. He does this because he doesn't believe that Ellie should have to carry the burden of knowing what happened for real. If you've noticed throughout the series, he's always said that Ellie's a kid and that she should be in a kid's place and be innocent and be able to live, you know, a normal life as much as possible in the apocalypse. A lot of people may call Marlene a morally ambiguous character for what she did, but I said that she was a bad person because she did not tell Ellie anything about the fact that she had to die. I mean, I'm pretty sure if she told Ellie back in the beginning of all this that, you know, she would have to die for the vaccine to be created, then, you know, there would have been a different decision made, or she could have made the decision to do so. But the important thing is she didn't tell her, and then she went on this whole cross-country expedition to get over here, only to eventually have found out that she would have had to die. And I don't think that would have made Marlene a good person, because I think that with her knowing Ellie and, you know, knowing her, she growing up, she didn't tell her because that she knew that she wouldn't have done it. Honestly, also, I do believe that Ellie would not have went through with it just because she kept talking about a life after creating a vaccine. For instance, she always talked about what would Joel do after they finished the expedition. What would she do after that? You know, her having dreams and goals after this doesn't really coincide with dying. At the very end of the game and the episode, it's pretty much verbatim the same. Ellie comes and asks Joel, did she tell him the truth about what really happened at the Fireflies hospital? And Joel has the chance to come clean about everything, but he lies to her again and says that he told the truth. And honestly, I think it's because he's worried about her mental health at this point, because she honestly is talking about not having anything to go forward for. And I think that if he told her that everything that they did was for nothing, then she would have been more devastated than she already was. Spoiler alert, she eventually finds out what happens in the next game. Although for the time being, I do feel like this was the best choice for Ellie, as she was still a kid and didn't know how to process everything that was going on.
Well, she got us close enough.
Like we're walking.
We can manage that. Remember?
Yeah.
Sarah and I used to take hikes like this.
I wouldn't say it was her favorite thing. She wasn't a fan of the mosquitoes and such.
I think the two of you would have been good friends. I think you really would have liked her. I know she'd have liked you.
Yeah, bet I would have.
Hey, wait.
When I got bit in the mall, I wasn't on my own.
My best friend was there.
And she got bit too.
We didn't know what to do.
And she says, we can just wait it out.
You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together.
And then she did. And I had to.
I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley. And she was the first to die.
And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
None of that is on you.
You can feel like you've come to an end. And you don't know what to do next.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And you... No matter what,
You find something new to fight for. And maybe that's not what you
Swear
want.
to me.
Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is...
This is true.
I swear.
Okay?
Okay.
And that is pretty much The Last of Us Part 1. I think that the season was, in totality, pretty good. I do think that there was a lot that they missed and could have added, but I think in totality, totality that it was a very good season. There was solid acting. They stuck to the storyline pretty well. They made a lot of very good choices here. Although I thought that they left out very, very important details from the game, like the infected. This series barely had any infected in it. Like, I guarantee that no one in the general public who has not played the game still does not know what a bloater is. And they were one of the most fearful figures in the game. Like, it just did not make sense to me that the bloater only had about 2 seconds on screen, and that was the last we heard of it. They took away all of the infected scenes that were supposed to be along with the Bill and Frank episode, and they basically didn't encounter any of them at all for their entire life. It looks like their biggest threat was like raiders, and again, no infected ever came to them. I honestly thought that was unrealistic. It just doesn't make sense that while this is like one of the most powerful pack of zombies and the most sensitive to prey of finding humans, that we just didn't encounter them at all. It's actually to the point where I feel like we don't even really fear the infected anymore. We only fear the humans that we've encountered on the show. And while I know that this was an important kind of point to drive home, that while the infected with their humans were even worse than them, I do feel like you have to add the threat that infected are still, a threat to humankind. Because according to this show, all you have to do is just move to the countryside or a cold place and you're just good to go. You're never going to encounter anyone. And I just don't think that's realistic. Like, even though these technical zombies would probably wipe the earth with the zombies from The Walking Dead. Right now, I feel like The Walking Dead zombies are more of a threat to humankind than the infected from The Last of Us, which makes no sense because The Last of Us, again, zombies would wipe the floor with the zombies from Walking Dead. And my last point about this and why I think this was so important is because next season they have to introduce the Rat King, which is like the more dangerous version of the bloater, but I still don't think that they've captured the real danger of the bloater. So it's like, how do you capitalize on that when you still have to go back and explain the real threat of the bloater? I also did not like the Kathleen character. I just did not believe that this person would be able to command the hand of 1,000 men in the apocalypse. Like Marlene, natural born leader. I could actually believe that. But Kathleen, it was just like, why would I listen to her when my life is in danger every single day and that this person is in charge of making sure that I'm safe? And as you can see, she was making all the dumbest of dumbest decisions because of she was putting all of resources to killing the person who killed her brother. The Bill and Frank episode was very confusing to me because I didn't understand why Frank would all of a sudden go from being this hardened person who wanted to be alone all of the time, and then the first man who comes to him, he just gives in to him and becomes his lover because he played the piano one time. I just thought that was very unrealistic as well. Like, I personally don't think Bill would have gave Frank the time of day in the real world, better yet the apocalypse, when he had to look over his back for everyone to see if there's someone who's trying to harm him. And also pacing was just off the entire series. Like, we'd have the first 2 episodes which grabbed us and wanted us to watch every episode probably like that same night, but then after that it just became lackluster. I think like after episode 1 and 2 we didn't get any more action until episode 5, and then after that we didn't get any action until like episode 8, and then it's just, I personally believe that they could have focused on the human relationships and gave us more of infected if they just created more episodes, or they could have had those filler episodes and still been able to have the big budget scenes that we needed to see in order to be satisfied as well. Because to me, what made those I guess I'll say less action scenes great in the game is that you just went through a whole ordeal with these people, and now you're kind of having that little adrenaline drop debrief. You're talking about what's going on, and it just adds more emotion to what's going on. So taking out that infected part of it just takes away from the personability of the characters for me too. So in conclusion, I did like this season of The Last of Us, although I will just say that it felt very rushed. And if they were allowed to elaborate on a little bit more, I think that we would have the best of both worlds. We would be able to have that action, and we would be able to go deeper into the character relationships. And I mean, that would just enhance the entire project as a whole. So in conclusion, I did like this season of The Last of Us, although I will just say that it felt very rushed. And if they were allowed to elaborate on a little bit more, I think that we would have the best of both worlds. We would be able to have that action, and we would be able to go deeper into the character relationships. And I mean, that would just enhance the entire project as a whole. So I hope you all have enjoyed this journey between episode 1 and 9, and see you all next season. In the meantime, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can get notifications for any videos we make about potential season 2 stuff and any other videos we make. See y'all later, Millennial Report family. Peace.